And we move on now to the other North London team, who might be happy about this because they win 3-1 against Bournemouth, meaning that Spurs are now 5th, 1 point behind the Gunners. And, Postecoglou, I guess, a very happy man to end the year with 3 points, Janusz.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I mean, a lot of similarities, I suppose. We were just talking about Arsenal playing against Fulham team, the Fulham that lost 3 straight, but no coincidence. They didn't have Raul Jimenez. I forgot to mention they didn't have Raul Jimenez and Willian, right? They came back, and all of a sudden, right, they're doing a little bit better. Same here. I mean, you're talking about Spurs team who's been up and down just a little bit against Bournemouth, who's been the hottest team since October, right? Since they last lost, if memory serves right. Not only that, but they've had the arguably hottest striker in Dominic Solanke as well. But early goal, just like Arsenal, and see the Spurs though. They have a tendency of fizzling out in games, don't they? I mean, they impress you. They're always going to have a go with Postecoglou, as we know it. But I was worried about them just as I was worried about Arsenal, because towards the end of that first half, it was Bournemouth, and Solanke alone in this game had probably 3 or 4 unbelievable chances. 2 headers that are for him are sitters, and that game could have gone sideways or backwards for Spurs as well, but they found a way because Heung-min Son, even though he was wasteful himself because he was played through on a couple occasions, but ultimately got that second, which gave them the breathing room. And then, of course, the third one from Michallik, again, beautiful action as well. So I don't know how they do it because, everybody complains, Luis, about losing players. I don't know if there's another team in the entire league who has lost so many significant players, because Spurs don't lose just any players. And then you have suspension, Kulu in this game, right? Bissouma a couple games ago. In this game, you have Pape Sarr, who scores a goal and then goes off with an injury as well. And somehow they are able to keep themselves in games. And even if they lose a game or two, then they bounce, they get a game, and look where they are on the table. It almost seems, with the number of games they've lost and number of players that they've lost, that they should be kind of like a little bit like Manchester United, maybe, in that region of the league, but they're not. So, and in their case, I think they have so much credit in the bag that it almost doesn't matter how they do it, if it's done in a good way or in a bad way. The bonus is that, of course, they do try to play.
Yeah, it's a remarkable achievement, taken in mind, of course, Postecoglou's very own all-out philosophy that they keep going. You mentioned the notable injuries, including, of course, James Maddison, who's a very important piece of this squad, but they get that win against a very good fighting Bournemouth as well. But here's a question for you, Janusz. Obviously, you mentioned Pape Sarr scoring the opening goal. He came off injured. Hopefully, the Senegalese international will be okay for the Africa Cup of Nations. But Heung-min Son will be leaving Tottenham soon for the Asian Cup. How significant is that going to be for Tottenham?
Well, I mean, it almost makes me think that it may not be, because this team is used to that. And I've just mentioned, I mean, James Maddison, you've mentioned, look at the number of injuries, the Perisic's of the world.
Heung-min Son, though. Heung-min Son, though, Janusz. Yeah, that's clearly their most important player, no?
Right, but Richarlison is getting in form. I mean, he's been playing, he's been scoring, right? Kulusevski's having a wonderful season as well. Brennan Johnson, just kind of, you see him getting going. Again, great assist, I believe, on that third goal as well. And the reason I say that is because they are doing it by committee. I mean, probably the best example of a team, as I've mentioned, that knows how to do it by committee, that is used to now psychologically, and this is massive, to lose these players, right? Because normally if you lose 1 or 2 key players, you say to yourself, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? But when it continues to happen, I mentioned Romero, Van de Ven, they're not strikers, but they're important part. And let's not forget, I mean, ahead of the season, they lost Harry Kane. I mean, think about that, right? I mean, such a rebuild, and Postecoglou doing such a great job. So, although I know what you're saying, and it's not great, he's got 12 goals, I think, now in the Premier League. I mean, he's very, very significant. But I have a feeling that this team doesn't even think about that, because they're so used to losing players, either transfer of Harry Kane or players to suspensions or players to injuries every game. I mean, there isn't a game that they don't lose 1 or 2 significant players, and they still keep themselves competitive. So I have a feeling that they are still, in many eyes, flying under the radar. And perhaps I can understand that, but I still think they understand what the major goal is, that this is a rebuild on the go. That's going great, and they'll be just happy if they make it to Europe and perhaps Champions League. I don't think in their minds, they're like, we're fighting for a title. If for some reason, because they're about, I mean, they're in 5th place, 1 point behind Arsenal, and not far away from the top where they've been, right? If say in April or May they find themselves in that situation, they'll take it, of course. But I just think that they're thinking it's a little bit different.
Yeah, 3 points of the top as we tape this as well. So Tottenham keeps on going. And of course, they said goodbye to one of their best players in recent time. And Hugo Lloris, the World Cup champion, goes off to LAFC for another journey in sunny LA. But for now, Janusz, Michallik, Luis Miguel, Echegaray will be saying goodbye to you. A very happy new year. And here's to 2024.